everyone, great to be back with you all again. For years now I've been a huge fan of Go Nagai and his various works from Mazinger Z all the way to Devilman here. I especially loved the original manga and the 70s anime, which both still hold a strong place in my heart. And of course the popularity of Devilman Crybaby brought everyone back to talking about this property in the US once again. But as far as video games are concerned, there's not much to speak of. Besides this Japanese Famicom title here, I believe the only other Devilman game was for the PlayStation 1, also released in Japan only. This would only make me even more curious about the Famicom title, and I just knew I'd have to try it out. But what to make of it today? For this video, I'll be using the English translation patch provided by Snark, which I'll link to in the description below, as well as raw, untranslated Japanese footage. So strap in, and we'll see just how well the Devilman for the Famicom holds up today! Released by Namco in April of 1989, Devilman is an action-adventure game with exploration elements based off the events of the Devilman manga and the anime series of the 1970s. Just like the original story, it follows the journey of Akira Fudo, a young boy who learns to harness the power of demons in order to fight off said demons. Under the guidance of his childhood friend Ryo, Akira merges with a demon called Amon and transforms himself into Devilman, allowing him to fight back and protect the people of Earth, including his one true love, Miki. Devilman makes use of as many buttons as it can on your controller. While you move left and right as well as duck with the D-pad, punch with the B button, and jump with the A button, the select and start buttons also serve different functions. The start button will pause the game, but will also open up a menu with talk and password. If there is someone in the room with you, then talk will allow you to speak with them. The dialogue spoken can also vary depending on whether or not Akira is transformed, as people will obviously talk differently to a large hulking demon than a small human boy. The password option will tell you whatever your current password is for the part of the game you're at. And you'll want to keep it handy as the game has no other form of save system. The select button opens up a different menu with up and down as your options. These actually involve transforming Akira into Devilman. Once you've met the requirements to do so, you can select up for Akira to turn into Devilman. In some areas, you'll be able to hit up once again, placing you into a completely different area. This is often used to go from the main town to a nearby forest. It's similar to a world map function, but it's used pretty infrequently throughout the game. It's also possible to gain a fireball attack by defeating monsters in your human form. This will build up Devilman's meter up to 6 places, and allow him to shoot until the meter runs out. There's no way to prevent him from using it, however, so if you want to conserve it, you'll have to stay in your human form as much as possible. Devilman's structure is a bit of a mix in styles. While part of the game revolves around action and minor platforming, there is also a large amount of exploration and storytelling involved, with multiple pieces of dialogue to put it all together. I'll describe the first stage just to give you an idea of what to expect. When starting out, you play strictly as Akira and have to walk around town and talk to people. After having the correct conversations and meeting up with Ryo, he directs you on how to transform. From here, you have to fight an onslaught of enemies until you've built up Akira's meter enough to transform. After doing so, you become Devilman, with a better range of attack, strength, and jumping ability. After speaking with Miki again, you learn that her parents were kidnapped. You have to talk to her multiple times here, and the third conversation actually allows you to switch out Akira with Miki, letting you play as her for the next segment. From here, Miki meets up with the character Dosoroku and defeats him. After switching back with Akira and going to the same location as the previous fight, the man there, after a punch or two, reluctantly agrees to help you and advises that you need to reach the sky with devil power. This is your cue to exit to the city once again, hit select, and choose up. This puts you outside of the city, where you can venture forward. From here, you fight a range of demon enemies until you come into contact with the game's first boss, Serene. After defeating her, a similar sequence to the manga and anime plays out, where she fuses at the torso with Kaim, a longtime friend, who offers up his life in order to protect hers. This leads you to have one more boss fight with the fused demon, until you are victorious. Next, you're given extra health to increase your meter, and are allowed to move forward to stage 2. As you can see by this whole description, there's a lot of different things going on here. You explore different places and talk to people, build up a meter by fighting enemies to transform, switch out with another main character, and face off with multiple enemy types before a 2-part boss fight at the end, with lots of dialogue to accompany it. And most of the game continues in this fashion, with you exploring new areas, talking to any people or demons that you can find, fighting countless enemies, occasionally switching out characters, and facing a boss at the end of each stage. As far as being faithful to the original story, whether we're talking about the manga or the 70s anime, I'd say it's a pretty loose adaptation overall. Multiple events happen in completely different ways from these other properties, and the events that are the same tend to happen in a completely different order and manner from the other media. This is especially so when talking about the game's multiple endings, which we'll get to later. Graphically, I'd say the game is okay. The characters and environments won't blow you away, as they were considered average even for their time, but they are serviceable enough and do plenty to distinguish each area, character, and boss fight from each other. The environments fit this description as well, as they are not terribly detailed, but do still manage to be quite varied and memorable. You have city backdrops, houses, mountain ranges, forests, laboratories, underground and underwater caves, and even an icy mountain area, which may be the Himalayas from the 70s anime, though I'm not entirely sure. The music is also decent. It didn't blow me away at any point, but I did find a few of the tunes to be pretty memorable, particularly the one playing as you walk around the city. With all of that said, you're probably wondering if this game is fun to play. I believe it is, but with a few caveats. For one thing, the game's structure is pretty difficult to follow without the help of some kind of guide or walkthrough handy. This is because even if you know the original story and the order of events happening, going to the right places to progress the story can be more of a chore than it's worth. For example, in order to make Ryo appear early on in the game and move the story forward, I have to talk with Miki in another building first, and then head to the proper, unspecified location of Ryo and talk to him. Not knowing little things like this can add huge amounts of wasted time to your belt, and through no fault of your own. The combat feels like a mixed bag. Devilman's punch has a good reach, while Akira's is understandably much smaller in terms of strength and range. With that said, the fireball ability is a blast to use, and gave me the same kind of vibe that Super Mario Bros. Did the first time you picked up a fire flower. Your movement is usually fast enough to combat anything in front of you, but the flying enemies in sections like these are pretty fast and ruthless. A few of these areas, particularly the caves and laboratory, can be pretty maze-like and confusing as well. I ended up going in circles quite a few times, simply because the environments looked exactly the same in places, making it hard to tell if I was still on the right path or not. Thankfully, the boss fights at the end of the tunnel would show me that I was. To change things up a bit, the game also has sections where the music will change to let you know that a human is under attack and needs your help. After finding the person, you have the option of either saving them or allowing the demon to eat them. The demon is quite powerful each time and can easily kill you if you're not careful. The boss fights themselves aren't too different from each other, especially if you've got Akira powered up with the fireball ability before each fight, but they do change up the gameplay just enough to keep things interesting. I especially loved the look of the fight with Zenon, the last or second to last boss fight, depending on which ending path you chose. He takes up most of the background and feels the way a proper, epic battle near the end of a game should. But there's another factor to all of this that fans of the series, and some curious gamers, will find quite interesting. The game has 3 possible endings. Even more interesting is the fact that the quote-unquote good ending is completely different from that of the manga or any other incarnation of the series. Depending on how you felt about the original manga's ending, this may either thrill or horrify you. In order to get the quote-unquote bad ending, you simply have to go through the game without worrying about saving any of the main characters before the fight with Zenon. This results in Satan still winning against humanity in the end, and being more in line with the manga. For the quote-unquote middle ground ending, you'll need to rescue both the Makimuras and Izumi in the 3rd and 4th chapters, but not Miki. The end result is still the same, but you'll also learn more about Ryo, his true identity as Satan himself, and his history with the human race, all before having one final battle with him in his true form. And finally, in order to get the good ending, you need to rescue every character, including Miki, before the fight against Zenon. Following this, and after defeating Satan in the final battle once again, you get a new ending, where Devilman actually defeats Satan, and watches on as the gods descend upon humanity, with the idea that some humans do end up surviving the attack. Compared to the original story, this could not be a bigger departure from its source material, but I think most fans will find it all the more interesting for that reason alone. In the end, I have to say that this game surprised me in a few ways. Its not-so-linear approach actually drew me in ways that I would not have expected for a game made in 1989. I only wish it was clearer about the places you needed to go, and the people you needed to talk to in order to move the story along. Due to this one major hiccup, I have a hard time recommending it to anyone outside of those who are already fans of the manga and anime. The combat, areas, dialogue, and boss fights are sure to please the fans, as it did me, but I don't think it will impress others in quite the same way. It's still possible for a series newcomer to get through this, but it's going to take them a lot more work and research to do so. And even with a knowledge of the series, you're still sure to get stuck in a few places. With that said, if you manage to enjoy games like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, for example, then you're sure to find plenty to like here as well, despite the game's more confusing segments. If you're already a fan of Devilman, then I do think you'll find it worth your time with the interesting change-ups to the story and the newer, more hopeful ending. Plus, you get to fight Satan in the air. That's pretty cool. While it may not be anything mind-blowing, I think the game still managed to do a lot more good than bad. And with this video, I hope that you, too, have now been inspired to go give it a try. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have you played this game before yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're feeling generous, please consider donating to my Patreon, where awesome people like Brandon, Thomas, Johan, Cielo, Jonathan, and Andrew all help to keep this channel going. Until next time. It's so dark.